Welcome to another episode of our video series of the mechanics of human existence.
Hi there. I'm doing great, thank you.
Hey.
I am really looking forward to getting into this today. How are you feeling about it?
I'm feeling energized, actually, because what we're tackling today is, it's arguably the most neglected public health issue on the planet.
Oh, absolutely. We're surrounded by all this advice on nutrition, on fitness.
Complex plans, sophisticated trackers, everything for the body.
Yet we're going to make the case that human life, at its very core, revolves entirely around emotional management. And if you're interested in, a shortcut to mastery in life,
It's it.
this is the operating system. Understanding this is the only real way to avoid that constant life friction.
Exactly. We've both spent decades observing this, right?
Yeah.
In schools, in families, in workplaces.
Yeah.
The main idea is just so clear.
It is.
We obsess over the body, but we completely ignore the brain's fundamental driver, which is emotion.
And as long as we fail to recognize and really process emotion correctly, we can't manage our lives. It's that simple.
And that leads to this silent epidemic.
The lack of emotional literacy. Every major conflict, whether it's in a home, a boardroom, or, between nations,
It's all emotional.
it's all rooted in an unmanaged emotional response.
Mm-hmm.
Without that emotional lens, we're just blind to the force that's driving all human behavior.
So let's unpack that core problem. Emotions as the ultimate controlling force. They dictate our choices, our reactions,
Our health.
our long-term health, yeah. And the claim is simple. If you don't manage them.
They will absolutely manage you. And it's so important to draw a really sharp line here. The world is a very emotional society. Everyone feels things so intensely.
But we are not an emotionally literate society.
Not at all. And that's the difference between consequence and capability.
Talk a bit more about that.
Well, being emotional without literacy is like,
Mm-hmm.
it's like being in a powerful river during a flood.
Mm-hmm.
You're feeling the current, it's intense, but you have no rudder, no control.
You're just being swept away.
You're being swept away. Emotional literacy, on the other hand, is the ability to see the currents, to understand the water, and to actually navigate to the shore.
And that capability, that skill, it requires a huge shift in how we even think about feelings themselves.
Yes, because we so often confuse the feeling with the action that follows.
Which brings us to a principle that is just so fundamental. Let's state this very clearly.
Okay, there are no wrong feelings, there are only wrong behaviors.
And that is a radical idea for so many people. We spend our lives trying to push away what we call bad feelings. Sadness, anger, fear.
As if they're obstacles to happiness.
Right.
But those feelings are just data. They're messengers. And if you shoot the messenger, you lose the message.
So what's a better way to think about them?
I like to use the metaphor of clouds. Emotions are like clouds. They come, they change shape, and they go. Your goal is to be the sky.
To be the sky, not the cloud.
Yeah.
I like that. So how do you do that? How do you stop the cloud from, turning into a destructive storm?
The process is what we call hosting the emotion. So you give the feeling a room key.
A room key.
A room key. You acknowledge its presence. I see you, anger. I recognize you, fear. But, and this is the key part, you do not give it the keys to the house.
You don't let it take over.
You never let it dictate your actions.
Let's use anger as an example. Anger is a normal, even healthy signal that a boundary has been crossed or something is unjust.
It absolutely is. The feeling of anger is correct data. But throwing a chair or yelling at someone you love,
That's the wrong behavior.
that is the wrong behavior that comes from the feeling. So emotional management is all about controlling the expression of the feeling, not getting rid of the feeling itself.
To understand how to manage that expression, we have to look at the biology. What is actually happening in the brain when we lose control, when we say we're seeing red?
That is the emotional hijack. When a really intense emotion hits, and it can be positive or negative, by the way.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yes. The brain defaults to survival mode. The limbic system, and specifically the amygdala, it just floods the system with stress hormones.
And what does that flood do?
It temporarily weakens the connection to the prefrontal cortex, the PFC.
Our human operating system, logic, critical thinking.
Patience, consequences, all of that.
Yeah.
When your PFC goes offline, your rational self is suspended. The animal brain takes over.
And that triggers the 3 Fs.
Fight, flight, or freeze.
Yeah.
You are biologically programmed to react, not to reflect.
So the critical question is, how do we get the PFC back online? Is there like a neurological reboot button?
There is, and that reboot relies entirely on activating the vagus nerve.
The superhighway between the brain and the body.
That's a great way to put it. By activating it, we signal to the brain that the threat is over and it's safe to bring the logical brain back.
And we know exactly how to do this. These aren't mystical techniques, they're mechanical.
They are. They often involve rhythm and regulation. Simple things like taking a slow, deep breath, or even just drinking a glass of water. That forces a switch from fight or flight to
Rest and digest.
rest and digest. Exactly.
And what I find fascinating is the science behind rhythmic movements, like rocking a baby.
Yes. We know that rhythmic patterns between about 7 and 10 cycles per second are deeply calming. They trigger delta and theta brainwaves.
So it mimics the most basic experiences of safety. A heartbeat rocking in the womb.
The body is programmed to seek out that pattern when it's stressed. It's a physical memory of safety.
But there are also relational ways to do this, right? Not just physical.
Yes, and this is maybe the most powerful technique. We call it emotional containment.
Okay.
It's when you provide space and empathy for someone to just feel their emotion without judgment. That sends the same neurochemical message of safety as physical rocking.
So your presence, your validation, is actually regulating their nervous system.
You're calming their amygdala for them, just enough for their PFC to flicker back on.
And this is the entry point for what you call emotion-friendly communication. The 4-step method. Let's walk through it.
Okay, so step 1 is the immediate action. Stop and observe. You have to halt your own reactive cycle. You must be the anchor in the storm.
Step 2 is acknowledge and mirror. And this is just descriptive, not judgmental.
Purely descriptive. Your face is red. Your voice sounds tight. Then you offer simple, non-intrusive support. Would you like some water? Do you need a minute?
And the critical thing here is you are not trying to solve the problem.
Absolutely not. Never say, you shouldn't feel that way, or let's fix this. That comes much later, only when the brain is fully back online.
So once the vagus nerve is activated and logic returns, what are the next 2 steps to get to a real resolution?
Step 3 is to identify the unmet need. Remember, feelings are messengers. So once they're calm, you ask, what did you need that you didn't get, or what boundary was crossed? Anger might signal a need for respect. Sadness, a need for connection.
And at this point, the person can actually think about it critically instead of just reacting.
Which sets them up perfectly for the final step, step 4. Social problem solving. Now that they're calm and they know the need, they can figure out the solution themselves.
So they might conclude on their own, okay, my need was respect, but throwing that glass was the wrong way to get it. I should apologize.
And that's a genuine resolution. It's not forced. Which reminds me of that finding about children and apologies.
Right. Hijack.
The word sorry just becomes associated with punishment, becomes meaningless. It's a mandatory chore, not a genuine act of repair. You actually ruin a core social skill by rushing it.
So the goal is internalization, not just compliance. And that can only happen when the PFC is working.
Precisely. And the really good news here for everyone listening is that all of this emotional intelligence, social skills, is all learnable and teachable at any stage of life.
Thanks to brain plasticity. Our brains are always reorganizing themselves. It might be easier when you're young, but it's never too late.
The brain is a social organ. I mean, fundamentally, the source of our growth is our relationships. That's the core of interpersonal neurobiology. Our relationships sculpt our brains.
So if you're a parent or a teacher, you are a sculptor. You're not just developing a child's brain with academics.
No, you're doing it through the quality of the connection, the safety, the bonding you provide.
And we see the results of this so clearly. Groups that go through emotional literacy programs.
They see dramatic academic and professional success. It proves that social emotional skills are the foundation for high-level thinking. When the emotional system is regulated, the brain is free to learn.
But the impact goes even deeper than that, doesn't it? Let's talk about the physical cost, the link between emotion and our physical destiny.
This is where it gets really profound. Chronic, unmanaged stress, those sustained negative emotions, they leave a literal footprint on the body through hormones like cortisol.
And those hormones affect our DNA.
They do. They control the epigenetic landscape. We used to think our genes were fixed hardware, but our emotional state, the software we run, determines which genes get turned on or off.
So your emotional life can literally shape your long-term health.
It can activate inflammatory genes or suppress immune function. Genetics is not fate. Your emotional life is a huge part of your destiny.
That is a powerful motivator for change. For an adult, this kind of work is hard. What drives someone to change their whole operating system?
Often it's reflection, looking back at the impact people have had on us. Because we only remember people based on one thing,
How that made us feel.
how they made us feel. Not what they gave us, not their title. You remember a great mentor because they made me feel safe, or they made me feel capable. Realizing that our legacy is the feeling we leave in others. That is a massive catalyst for change.
So, for you listening, the takeaway is that emotional management has to be an active project, a lifetime commitment, not something you just wait for.
We've given you the science, the mechanics, the PFC, the vagus nerve, the 4 steps. Now that this knowledge exists, the risk of regret if we don't act on it is, well, it's so much higher. The tools are here.
Which brings us to a final thought. If every single person, especially parents, teachers, leaders, focused on this, what kind of world would we live in?
That utopian vision, a truly harmonious society, it isn't going to come from high technology or space travel.
No.
It's achievable simply by individuals learning how to live together, how to understand each other, how to regulate their own internal state first.
Mastering the internal environment is the only way to master the external one. Emotional literacy isn't just a nice skill to have, it's maybe the single most fundamental priority for a peaceful future.